Picture a windowsill in a typical family home, just, sitting right there in the afternoon sunlight, are two small Lego figures, Wall-E and Eve.
Oh, like from a Pixar movie.
Yeah, exactly, from the movie. But in this specific household, these aren't just like toys left out by the kids. They are this brilliantly simple emotional barometer. Right, so the couple who lives here actually uses them to communicate their internal emotional states to each other without having to utter a single word. So imagine walking into the house after a long day, you look at the windowsill and you see Wall-E facing the corner.
No.
Yeah. He's completely turned away from the room. His little robotic chest is popped wide open with his garbage visibly spilling out. And get this, there's a plastic cockroach sitting right next to him.
That is just a remarkably vivid, almost poetic way of communicating. I'm completely depleted. I'm overwhelmed. And quite frankly, I feel like garbage right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need a degree in psychology to decode that message.
You really don't. You walk in, you see that visual, and you instantly know things are operating at, like, emotional DEFCON 4.
Right.
And that brings us to the core mission of our deep dive today. Welcome to the Living Hopecast. Today we are exploring what actually happens when we lack a solid framework for handling those heavy negative emotions in our relationships.
It's so important.
It really is. So we are looking at a message called The Menu of Grace. This was presented by Jeremy and Anna Payton on Sunday, May 17 at Living Hope Community Church. And just to cover our bases right up front, a full video recording of the message is linked in the description of this deep dive.
Yep.
It's available on the Living Hope webpage, YouTube, Facebook, and on their church app. We highly recommend checking out the message for yourself.
Yeah, you really should, because our specific focus today is going to be unpacking how relational conflict, the everyday friction that happens in our living rooms, our kitchens, our cars.
Oh, yeah, especially the cars.
Right? How that actively blocks our spiritual lives. And practically, we're going to walk through this tool called the Menu of Grace, which is designed to help you navigate those incredibly tense, delicate moments where human instinct usually drives us to make things much, much worse.
Okay, well, let's unpack this, because the reality of conflict is it's rarely pretty, right? And it often catches us completely off guard.
Almost always.
In the message, Anna Payton tells this highly relatable story about coming home from school one day. She walks in, and instead of finding those Lego figures peacefully resting on the windowsill, she finds literal smashed Legos scattered violently across the floor.
Oh, man.
I know. And in that exact fraction of a second, she realizes she is in the middle of a massive fight that she didn't even know she was having.
Because the environment just went from baseline normal to absolute chaos while she was entirely out of the room. I mean, that is a jarring realization for the nervous system.
Yeah, it really is. And Jeremy's response to this overwhelming internal spiral he was experiencing, he essentially panicked. He left a vague handwritten note on the counter that just said, "I can't talk right now, I'm gone."
Well, I'm gone.
I'm gone. He didn't specify where he was going or when he'd be back. He just fled to his cave to be alone and try to connect with God because he was stuck in this terrifying negative thought loop. Every time his brain tried to generate a positive thought, it was immediately crushed by a dark one.
That's a classic flood response.
Exactly. To me, this perfectly captures our biological knee-jerk response to conflict. I actually like to think of it like a blaring fire alarm going off inside your brain.
I love that. That is an incredibly accurate metaphor for what happens neurologically. Let's dig into that fire alarm concept.
Okay, so when a literal fire alarm rings in an office building, it's designed to be so loud, abrasive, and disorienting that your rational brain just completely shuts down.
Right, you're not sitting at your desk analyzing the structural integrity of the building.
No. Or debating the chemical nature of combustion. You're just scrambling for the nearest exit because you simply want the noise, the deeply uncomfortable feeling, to stop.
Yeah, you just want out.
Exactly. For Jeremy, the exit was physical withdrawal, fleeing the house. For someone else, the exit might be yelling to drown out the noise or obsessively over-explaining everything to try and assert control over the situation.
What's fascinating here is how this ties directly into how we process the raw data of our feelings and why those feelings trigger the alarm in the people around us.
Okay, how so?
Well, in the message, Jeremy and Anna reference the SASHET emotion wheel. SASHET is an acronym for sad, angry, scared, happy, excited, and tender.
Okay, sachet.
Right. It's a really practical tool for checking in with your partner. Imagine actually having this list on your fridge. It gives you the vocabulary to articulate what you're experiencing without having to invent the words while you're in a panic.
Oh, that makes sense.
But here is the mechanism that causes so much trouble. When someone we love checks in and honestly admits they are feeling one of those uncomfortable emotions like I'm sad or I'm scared,
Right.
their vulnerability actually acts as the smoke that triggers our internal fire alarm.
Because seeing them in pain makes us uncomfortable.
Exactly.
So our immediate instinct is to either frantically fix their problem so the smoke clears, or retreat to another room so we don't have to hear the alarm.
Precisely. But reacting to that alarm by fixing or fleeing doesn't actually extinguish the fire. It exacerbates the disconnect. It leaves the other person feeling unheard, managed, and ultimately abandoned in their vulnerability.
Wow.
Now, at this point, you might be asking, why does a marital spat over smashed Legos matter so much in the broader context of faith? Like, why dedicate an entire church message to communication tactics?
That is the million-dollar question, right? If I'm listening to this, I might be thinking, okay, this is decent couples therapy, but what does it have to do with my spiritual life?
Well, because the core theological premise of the message is that how we treat each other horizontally, like person to person, directly dictates the capacity of our vertical relationship with God.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the two are inextricably linked. You simply cannot separate your intimacy with God from the way you handle friction with the people in your life. Unresolved relational conflict creates active, structural blocks in a person's spiritual life.
The message actually points to some pretty intense biblical evidence for this. They outline a few specific types of blocks.
Yeah, let's go through those.
First, there's what we can call the sensory block. They referenced 1 John 4, which states that if anyone claims to love God but hates their brother or sister, they're a liar.
Brutal, but clear.
Right. The logic there is incredibly clear. You cannot love an unseen God if you are actively harboring hate or resentment for a seen sibling.
We had to look at the mechanism of why that happens. It creates a sensory numbness. Resentment is essentially a neurotoxin to empathy.
A neurotoxin. Wow.
Yeah, if you systematically harden your heart to the people around you just to protect yourself from conflict, you lose the sensory capacity to feel the subtle movements of the Spirit. You can't selectively numb your heart. If you numb it to your spouse, you numb it to God.
Okay, then there is the communication block. And this one stopped me in my tracks. 1 Peter 3.7 specifically warns husbands that failing to live with their wives in an understanding and honoring way leads directly to their prayers being hindered.
Hindered.
And that word hindered isn't just a mild delay, like being put on hold. In the original language, it literally means to be chopped down or impeded, like felling a massive tree across a road to completely stop an advancing army.
It is a profound barricade. It basically suggests that our prayers hit a ceiling built by our own relational negligence.
And the blocks don't even stop there. There are worship and witness blocks. In Matthew 5, Jesus demands that if you are bringing a gift to the altar and suddenly remember your brother has something against you, you have to leave the gift.
You literally stop the worship service.
Yes. You leave the building and you go reconcile first. And then in 1 Timothy 3, it explicitly states that a person must manage their own household well before they can ever be trusted to lead a church. The private reality dictates the public capacity.
Those are heavy mandates. Very heavy.
So I have to play devil's advocate for the listener here, because this can sound really harsh. Like, does God literally sit up in heaven and put our prayers on a cosmic customer service hold just because we gave our spouse the silent treatment on a Tuesday?
Right.
Is God just being petty about our bad moods and punishing us?
It's a very natural question to ask. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, it isn't about God being petty, punitive, or keeping a scorecard. It's about the fundamental structural condition of the human heart.
Okay, explain that.
Think of your heart, your soul, as a single unified organ of connection. You don't have one insulated compartment for loving God and a totally separate, disconnected compartment for loving your family.
Right, it's not divided.
It's all the exact same hardware. So a heart that has actively hardened itself, built up defensive walls, and grown callous toward a spouse, a child, or a friend simply lacks the physical capacity to be soft, receptive, and tender toward the Spirit of God. You cannot turn that callousness on and off like a light switch.
That reframes it completely. It's not a punishment, it's just a structural reality.
Right.
To use another analogy, if the plumbing is clogged with debris in the living room, the water simply isn't going to flow in the prayer closet.
That's exactly the reality of it. The pipes are connected. So if the stakes are truly this high, if our spiritual vitality literally depends on our relational maturity, how do we actually handle that random Tuesday afternoon when the person we love is angry, overwhelmed, or scared?
Right. How do we stop the fire alarm?
Exactly.
Well, if our biological instinct is to either fix the problem or flee the room, we clearly need a template for a third option. We need to look at how Jesus handled people in emotional distress without triggering his own alarm.
We really do. The message highlights Mark 10.51, where Jesus encounters a blind man who is desperately calling out to him from the side of the road. Now, the physical need here is painfully obvious to everyone in the crowd. The man cannot see.
Right, it's glaringly obvious.
But Jesus doesn't just rush in, wave his hand, and unilaterally fix the problem. Instead, he pauses, looks at the man, and asks a disarming question. What do you want me to do for you?
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. Jesus, who literally possesses omniscience and knows exactly what the man needs, still intentionally honors the man's agency. He refused to presume.
Right.
Compare that to our modern urge to instantly fix people. The moment someone we love is hurting, we rush in with unsolicited solutions, podcast recommendations, alternative perspectives, and we completely bulldoze their agency because we're just trying to silence our own internal fire alarm.
Because we want our discomfort to end. So we treat the person like a puzzle to be solved, rather than a human to be comforted. But what a flooded brain actually needs is to be seen and heard on its own terms.
And this is exactly where Jeremy and Anna introduce the menu of grace. I am obsessed with this concept.
It's brilliant.
It really is. Think about the psychology of going to a restaurant. You're starving, you're exhausted from a long day, and the absolute last thing you want to do is invent a complex meal from scratch. The physical menu takes the terrifying cognitive load off of your exhausted brain. You just look at a curated list, point, and say, I want that one.
Yep.
The menu of grace does the exact same thing for a person who is drowning in emotion. It gives them a structured, safe way to ask for what they need without having to articulate it from a blank slate.
And the mechanism of the menu starts with a simple, intentional opening question. When your person is upset, instead of assuming, you look at them and ask, how can I serve you best right now? Or what would be most helpful for you?
Just asking that question immediately lowers the temperature in the room. It signals, hey, I am not going to attack you and I am not going to abandon you. And then you present them with 5 specific options, the menu items that they can choose from. Let's walk through them because the order really matters. Option 1 is, I could just be with you.
This is pure validation. No fixing, no theological explanations, no silver linings. Just the profound gift of presence. It's communicating, I'm willing to sit in this uncomfortable mess with you so you aren't alone.
I have to admit, as someone who naturally wants to solve problems, option 1 sounds excruciating. Just sitting in silence while someone is hurting feels like I'm failing them.
Well, it feels like failing because your fire alarm is demanding action. But you have to realize that for a nervous system that is completely overwhelmed, your silent, non-judgmental presence is actually the most stabilizing force in the world. It is deeply honoring to their pain.
Okay, that makes sense. Then there's option 2. I could pray for you together now. But Jeremy and Anna add a crucial follow-up question here. What are we going to ask God for?
This is huge.
Right. Because let's be honest, how many times has someone offered to pray for you, and the moment they close their eyes, they start asking God for things that you don't even want or agree with?
It is remarkably common. People often use prayer to secretly preach at the person or to passive-aggressively fix them in front of God.
Yeah.
Asking, what are we going to ask God for, keeps the agency entirely with the person who is hurting. You are essentially acting as a porter, just coming alongside to help them carry their specific, chosen burden to Jesus.
I love that image. Option 3 is, I could listen to Jesus with you on this. This involves setting a timer for 2 minutes, sitting in complete, unbroken silence together, and just paying attention to what comes to mind. Maybe a scripture verse, a sense of peace, or a gentle nudge, and then sharing it afterward.
Notice how this shifts the dynamic. It moves from, I, the smart spouse, need to solve your problem, to, we are both inadequate here. Let's pause and see what God might be whispering to both of us. It completely levels the playing field.
It really does.
Yeah.
And then we finally arrive at option 4. I could share stories and advice. Notice that the fixer's absolute favorite tool is pushed all the way down to number 4.
Yep, way down the list.
You only get to offer your brilliant advice and your shared experiences if it is explicitly ordered off the menu.
And that takes profound discipline. When you're listening to a loved one detail a problem, your brain is likely generating 5 different, highly logical solutions.
Oh, at least 5.
The true test of love and relational maturity in this framework is the discipline to choke down your brilliant advice until the other person points to option 4 and explicitly says, "Tell me what you would do." If they don't order it, you do not serve it.
Wait, hold on. I need to push back on this a little. If I objectively see my spouse making a mistake, or I know the exact solution to their stress, isn't it my duty to tell them? Isn't withholding that solution actually unloving?
It feels unloving to you because you want to soothe your own anxiety about the problem.
Yeah.
But think about it like trying to feed a toddler who simply isn't hungry. You can have the most nutritious, perfectly prepared food in the world, and you can physically force the spoon into their mouth, but they're just going to spit it right back out at you. And now you both have a mess.
Oh, man.
If their brain is not in a cognitive state to receive the advice, offering it doesn't solve the problem. It actually damages the connection. They have to be hungry for the advice, for it to nourish them.
That toddler analogy is terrifyingly accurate. If they aren't asking for it, you are just violating their boundaries.
Exactly.
And finally, option 5. I could offer coaching or refer you to an expert. This is for when highly practical, tactical steps are needed, like finding a book, sending a podcast, or calling a professional counselor. But again, only if they're ready and actively asking for that level of intervention.
Now, as brilliant as this menu is, we have to address a significant danger here.
What's that?
If you're in the middle of a highly heated argument and you just coldly pull out a printed piece of paper from your pocket and start pointing at options like a robot,
Oh, yeah, don't do that.
it is going to feel incredibly clinical.
Yeah.
It can feel deeply insulting, like you're trying to handle or manage the person like a project.
Yes, Jeremy and Anna gave a massive caveat for this. The menu of grace is not a script to be rigidly performed. It's a relational liturgy.
Let's break down what they mean by that word, liturgy.
They compared it to the Lord's Prayer. You can rattle off the Lord's Prayer mindlessly just to check a religious box, and it means absolutely nothing. It's just dead words.
Right.
Or you can use it as an intentional, predictable rhythm that actively guides your heart into a genuine connection with God. The menu of grace is the same. It's meant to provide an undercurrent of safety and predictability. When someone knows, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you aren't going to ambush them with unsolicited advice, they feel safe enough to actually drop their defenses and share what's hurting them.
Because structure provides safety for heavy emotions. When the emotional waters are turbulent, the menu acts as the riverbanks. It gives the water a place to flow without destroying the surrounding town.
Exactly. And my absolute favorite story from the message illustrates this perfectly. It's how Jeremy used extreme structure to repair their relationship after that massive fight with the smashed Legos.
Oh, this is such a good example.
He had gone to his cave, his fire alarm had finally stopped ringing, and he processed his anger. He realized he had a whole list of grievances he needed to discuss with Anna, but he also knew the neuroscience of conflict. If he walked out of that cave and dumped a macro argument on her all at once, her nervous system would flood, her fire alarm would go off, and they'd be back to square one.
Predictable cycle.
Yep. So he typed out his grievances as literal bullet points on a piece of paper. He printed the page, took scissors, and literally cut the paper into individual strips.
The psychology of that is just brilliant. He physically segmented the conflict.
Yes. He brought these little strips of paper to Anna and handed them to her one single strip at a time. She got to read one bullet point, cognitively process it, respond to it, and completely finish the conversation about that one specific thing before he ever handed her the next strip. She didn't even know how many strips he had left in his hand.
Wow.
It was a masterclass in giving someone the microstructure they need to handle a heavy emotional load without drowning.
And consider how utilizing a structure like this, or the menu of grace, completely changes the fundamental power dynamics in a relationship. Think about a typical fight. The panic usually comes from the guessing game.
Oh, totally.
You're frantically trying to guess what the other person wants from you, and they are furious that you aren't guessing correctly.
Yes.
The menu completely removes that panic. It levels the playing field by turning a guessing game into a clear transaction of needs.
And it isn't just for heavy, dramatic conflict either. The message pointed out that this structure works beautifully with toddlers throwing tantrums. You literally get down on their eye level and ask, what do you need most from me right now? And give them simplified options. It gives a chaotic little developing mind a profound sense of agency.
It also applies equally to Intensely happy moments.
Oh, this is so true, and we get this wrong all the time. How many times have you been bursting with excitement to share good news or a new project idea with someone, and instead of just celebrating with you, which is option 1, just being with you in the joy, they immediately jump to option 4. They start playing devil's advocate, pointing out flaws, or offering unasked for advice on how you could make the project even better?
And in a matter of seconds, your joy is entirely deflated.
No.
You didn't want a critique, you wanted a cheerleader. The menu prevents us from accidentally crushing the people we love under the weight of our own suffocating helpfulness.
Ultimately, applying this tool allows relationships to level up rather than shatter under the immense pressure of daily life. And that brings us all the way back to the core of the message. True emotional maturity isn't just about reading the right theology books or memorizing scripture.
No, it's not.
It is about actively doing the hard work to clear the relational blocks in our own living rooms. It's about ensuring we aren't literally hindering our own prayers by how we treat our families. We do this so that the Spirit of God has the clear runway to actually move in our lives.
And practically, it means that the next time you're faced with a highly emotional friend, a stressed out spouse, or an overwhelmed coworker, you don't have to panic. Your fire alarm doesn't have to dictate your response. You have a tangible framework. Stop guessing. Stop trying to frantically fix them to soothe your own anxiety. Just ask how to serve them, offer the options, and honor their agency.
It is such a massive relief to realize you don't have to possess all the answers. You just have to have the courage to ask the right question.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over as you go about your week. We have been so culturally conditioned by movies and media to believe that true romantic love or deep soul-tie friendship means spontaneously knowing exactly what the other person needs.
We really have.
We expect our partners to be magical mind readers, and we harbor deep resentment when they inevitably aren't. But what if the highest form of love isn't mind reading at all? What if true love is simply having the humility to admit that you don't know and the patience to let them tell you exactly how they want to be cared for?
Wow. That completely changes the dynamic of how we view intimacy. It means that when you walk through the door and see Wally facing the corner with his chest open and his garbage spilling out, you don't have to rush over and try to frantically piece him back together. You can just pull up a chair, sit down next to him, look at Eve, and ask, how can I serve you best right now? Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We'll catch you next time.